Journey Across Borders, a Japanese student's exchange adventure in the United States. Block 1. The Dream That Wouldn't Let Go. My name is Hiroshi Tanaka, and I come from Osaka, Japan. If you had asked me a few years ago what my biggest dream was, I probably would have told you something ordinary. To pass my exams, to get into a good university, maybe to find a part-time job that would let me buy the latest gadgets or travel inside Japan. But deep inside, almost hidden under all those more practical ambitions, there was a seed of a dream that refused to disappear. That dream was to live, even if only for a short time, in another country, completely outside the world I had always known. It started when I was in middle school. My English teacher showed us pictures of her time as an exchange student in the United States. She spoke about her host family, her high school football games, her struggles with the language, and even how she learned to love peanut butter sandwiches, something she had hated at first. I remember watching her, listening not just to her words, but to the sparkle in her eyes. It was as if her life had been divided into two parts, before the exchange and after the exchange. And the after part sounded brighter, wider, and somehow more alive. At the time, I brushed it off. I told myself, that's for people who are brave, people who are rich, people who already speak English well. None of those categories seemed to include me. I was shy, careful, and while my grades in English were decent, I never felt comfortable speaking out loud. Still, every now and then, the idea would return, like a whisper in my mind. What if it were you? What if you could go? By the time I turned 16, the whisper had become a constant voice. My high school often received pamphlets about exchange programs. They came in glossy covers with smiling teenagers holding flags from different countries. Every time I saw one, I felt a tug at my heart. One afternoon, I stayed late after class, pretending to study, but in truth I was staring at one of those pamphlets. On the cover, a Japanese girl was standing between two American students, all of them wearing their graduation gowns. She was smiling, and I thought, she looks like she belongs there, even though she's so far from home. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed imagining myself in her place, walking through the wide hallways of an American school, carrying textbooks written entirely in English, maybe even joining a club, or making a speech in front of classmates. The images were so vivid that I could almost hear the bell ringing, almost feel the nervous energy in my chest. And yet, when I looked at myself honestly, I knew how far I was from that image. I was still Hiroshi, the boy who sometimes avoided answering in English class because he was afraid of mispronouncing words. The turning point came during the annual school festival. Our class decided to run an international cafe where students served food from different countries. I volunteered for the American booth, where we sold pancakes and hamburgers. On the morning of the festival, a group of exchange students from another nearby school visited. One of them was from the United States. Her name was Emily. She had only been in Japan for a few months, but her Japanese was surprisingly good. I remember watching her laugh and joke with my classmates, even though she made mistakes. Nobody cared. In fact, her mistakes made everyone like her more, because they could see she was trying. That evening, as I helped clean up the classroom, I realized something important. I had been waiting to feel ready, to feel like my English was perfect, like I had enough courage, like I could guarantee success. But watching Emily made me understand that you don't have to be perfect to begin. You just have to start. That realization haunted me. Over the next weeks, I began to seriously research exchange programs. I looked at websites late at night, scrolling through stories of Japanese students who had gone abroad. Some said it was the hardest year of their lives. Others said it was the best. Almost all of them said it had changed them forever. I wanted that change. I wanted to step into the unknown and see who I could become. Of course, wanting something and actually going for it are two very different things. In my head, I could already hear the voices of doubt. It's too expensive. You'll get homesick. You'll fall behind in school. What if your English isn't good enough? Those voices weren't just imaginary. They were the same doubts my parents might have. Maybe even my teachers. One Sunday afternoon, I gathered all my courage and brought it up to my parents. We were sitting at the dinner table, eating okonomiyaki that my father had cooked on the hot plate. The smell of cabbage and pork filled the air. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought they could hear it. Finally, between bites, I blurted out, I think I want to apply for a student exchange program to the United States. The silence that followed was heavier than I expected. My father put down his chopsticks slowly, looking at me as if I had just announced I wanted to climb Mount Everest. My mother blinked several times, then asked softly, "Hiroshi, are you serious?" I nodded, forcing myself not to look away. Yes, I've been thinking about it for a long time. I want to challenge myself. I want to see the world outside Japan. My father's brow furrowed, and I could see the worry in his eyes. "It's not easy," he said. "It's expensive. And your English." His voice trailed off, but the meaning was clear. "I know," I said quickly. "I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to study harder. I'm willing to prepare. I don't want to let this chance slip away." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then my mother reached across the table and touched my hand. "Let's talk more about it," she said gently. "If this is truly your dream, we will listen." That night, lying in bed again, I felt something different. For the first time, my dream was no longer just in my head. I had spoken it out loud. I had planted the seed not only in my own heart, but also in the hearts of my parents. And even though I didn't know how they would ultimately respond, I knew the journey had officially begun. As I drifted to sleep, I whispered to myself, "This is the beginning. One day I will walk the hallways of an American school. One day I will live that dream." And deep inside, a quiet voice replied, "Yes, Hiroshi. But first, you must prove how much you want it." Block 2. The Weight of Doubt and the First Research. The morning after I told my parents about wanting to study abroad, the atmosphere at breakfast was different. Usually my father would read the newspaper silently. My mother would remind me to eat more miso soup before leaving for school, and I would rush to finish so I wouldn't miss the train. But that morning, the silence felt charged, almost heavy. I knew what was on everyone's mind. My announcement. I tried to act normal, chewing my toast, but my heart was restless. My father finally broke the silence. "Hiroshi, do you even know what it takes to study abroad? Which program? How much money?" His questions were sharp, but I could sense that behind them was genuine concern. I shook my head honestly. Not yet, but I'll find out. I'll research everything. That was the beginning of countless hours spent online. After school, I would sneak into the library's computer lab and type Japanese high school exchange programs into the search bar. Websites appeared, some in English, some in Japanese. The names of organizations blurred together at first. AFS, Rotary Youth Exchange, EF, and several local agencies. Each had different requirements, costs, and rules. The more I read, the more I realized how complicated it was. Application deadlines, essays, interviews, medical checkups, English proficiency tests. It wasn't something you could decide on a whim. It was a commitment that would demand months of preparation. That night, I printed out a thick stack of information and brought it home. My parents watched as I laid the papers across the table as if I were presenting a case in court. "Here," I said, pointing to one brochure. "This program partners with schools in America. They help with host families, and the cost is less if you get partial scholarships." My father studied the pages with a skeptical look. "Still expensive," he murmured. "Yes," I admitted, "but maybe I can apply for support. Some programs even give discounts if you write strong essays or show leadership skills. And I can work part-time to help with expenses before I leave." My mother looked at me with soft eyes. "You've really thought about this, haven't you?" I nodded. More than ever, I wanted to prove that this dream wasn't just a passing fantasy. It was becoming a plan. That evening, after my parents went to bed, I sat at my desk and wrote in my journal. Step 1, research. Step 2, convince. Step 3, prepare English. Step 4, apply. I underlined each step twice. But as I stared at the list, a wave of fear washed over me. Could I really do this? Would my English hold up in real conversations? Would I be lonely, thousands of kilometers away from Osaka? Still, another voice whispered back, "You won't know unless you try." That night I fell asleep with my head resting on the stack of brochures, my dreams filled with images of airplanes, foreign classrooms, and the challenge that lay ahead. Block 3, the family debate. My parents didn't give me an answer right away. For days, the topic lingered in the air, sometimes appearing suddenly in conversations, sometimes vanishing into silence. One evening, while washing dishes with my mother, she asked, "Hiroshi, why the United States? Why not somewhere closer, like Australia, or even just focus on university later?" I thought carefully. Because America feels like the center of so many things: movies, music, technology. If I can adapt there, maybe I can adapt anywhere. And also, I want to test myself in the hardest place possible. She smiled faintly. "You sound determined." My father, however, was harder to convince. One Saturday, he sat me down in the living room. "Hiroshi, listen. I admire your dream, but studying abroad isn't a game. If you fail, it affects your future. Falling behind in your studies, struggling with English, it could make things worse." I looked at him straight in the eye. "Odu-san, I know it's risky, but I don't want to live with regret. If I stay here and never try, I'll always wonder what could have been. Please, let me at least apply. If I'm not accepted, then fine. But if I am, I want to go." The room fell silent. My father's face softened slightly, though his eyes still carried worry. Finally, he sighed. "We will think about it, but you must show us you're serious, improve your English, Research everything, and don't let your school grades drop. That was as close to approval as I could hope for. My heart lifted. It wasn't a yes yet, but it wasn't a no either. That night, I promised myself I would prove my seriousness. Block 4. The first step toward English mastery. English had always been one of my better subjects, but it was mostly grammar drills, vocabulary lists, and reading passages. Speaking? That was a different story. I felt clumsy, as if my tongue refused to cooperate with my brain. After my father's challenge, I knew I had to level up. I started by setting a strict routine. Every morning, I listened to an English podcast on my way to school. During lunch break, instead of chatting in Japanese, I forced myself to read short English news articles on my phone. At night, I practiced speaking in front of the mirror, pretending I was introducing myself to an American student. It was embarrassing at first. My pronunciation sounded strange even to me. Sometimes my little sister, Yui, would peek into my room and laugh. "Why are you talking to yourself in English, Oni-chan?" I blushed but refused to stop. Slowly, I began to notice progress. Words that once felt foreign began to roll off my tongue more easily. One day, I even mustered the courage to answer a question in English class with a full sentence instead of a single word. My teacher raised her eyebrows in surprise and nodded approvingly. That small victory felt like a giant leap. At night, I imagined myself in an American classroom, raising my hand confidently. Each practice session was like building a bridge from Osaka to the United States, one word at a time. Block 5. The school interview announcement. Just as I was starting to feel more confident, my homeroom teacher called me after class. "Tanaka-kun," she said, adjusting her glasses, "I heard from your parents that you're interested in applying for an exchange program. Is that true?" My heart skipped a beat. "Yes, sensei," she smiled. "Then you should know, our school is cooperating with a program this year. But the competition is strong. Only a few students will be nominated. There will be an internal interview first, before you can apply officially." I bowed slightly, hiding my excitement. "Hi, wakarimashita. Thank you." Walking home, my thoughts raced. This was it, the opportunity I had been waiting for, but the idea of an interview terrified me. What if I froze? What if they asked me questions in English and I stumbled? That evening, I told my parents. My father raised an eyebrow. "So soon? Are you ready?" "I will be," I said firmly. From that night on, I treated the interview like an exam that could decide my future. I researched common interview questions, practiced answers in English and Japanese, and even recorded myself speaking to analyze my tone. Every mistake became fuel to improve. As the date approached, my nerves grew, but so did my determination. This was the first real test, and I was determined not to let fear win. Block 6. Facing the interview. The day of the school interview arrived with a sky that was unusually clear, as if the universe itself had wiped away the clouds just to watch me. My stomach twisted with nerves as I put on my cleanest uniform and straightened my tie again and again in front of the mirror. In the teacher's office, 3 teachers sat in a row behind a table. Their serious faces made my palms sweat. I bowed deeply. "Yoroshiku, onegai shimasu." The questions began. At first, they were in Japanese. Why do you want to study abroad? How will you manage if you feel homesick? What about your studies here when you return? I answered honestly, trying to keep my voice steady, because I want to challenge myself. I want to experience life outside Japan, improve my English, and grow as a person. I know it will be difficult, but I want to face that difficulty head on. Then came the part I had been dreading. One teacher switched to English. Hiroshi, can you tell us about yourself? My throat tightened. For a split second, my mind went blank. But then I remembered the countless times I had practiced in the mirror. I took a breath and began. My name is Hiroshi Tanaka. I am from Osaka, Japan. I like reading books, playing basketball, and studying English. I want to study abroad because I believe it will change my future. I want to learn not only language, but also culture, and to make many friends from another country. My voice trembled at first, but as I spoke, confidence grew. The teachers nodded, scribbling notes. After what felt like an eternity, the interview ended. I bowed again and left the room, my legs trembling like jelly. Outside, I leaned against the wall and exhaled deeply. Whatever the result, I knew I had given my best. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the interview in my mind. Some answers could have been better, but I had faced it. For the first time, I truly felt like the dream was moving from fantasy into reality.